Hey there. Tonight, we're going to listen to a different kind of story. Not the shining legend, but the cold, heavy truth behind the armor. You won't find dragons or perfect heroes here. This is a story about a life of hard work, fear, and struggle. If you like this kind of story, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if it helps you feel peaceful. Please tell me in the comments where you are and what time it is. It's comforting to know that someone else is also stuck in a slow, boring rut. So, turn the lights down low. Let your imagination create a warm atmosphere in the room. Get comfortable, and let's start by learning how to make a knight. You are 7 years old when the path to knighthood begins. But it won't be with a sword. It will be with a farewell. Your parents, proud and maybe a little bit happy, send you to work for a noble lord. There are no goodbyes written in ink or kept in special boxes. You just need a little encouragement, some new clothes, and the weight of expectation on your young body. Nobody will ever ask if you are ready. Actually, being ready isn't important. You are a page now. The castle is huge and looks really big. Tall stone towers stretch up into the gray sky. It looks like it will be both great and difficult. The gate opens. The world we live in is not full of honor and glory. It is full of hard work, serving others, and finding a way to survive. You will become a chival later, after years of fetching, carrying, and cleaning up after horses and noblemen who have equally bad tempers. There is always more to do. From sunrise to late at night, you run errands, sweep halls, deliver messages, and help with meals. On some days, you are also allowed to polish armor. This sounds exciting, but it means getting rid of dried mud and horse poo from heavy iron boots. Your hands are sore, your back hurts, and the knights don't even notice you. You are not one of them yet. You are the help. But even at the start, training is already needed. Wooden swords are handed out like brooms, and bruises start to appear on your arms as you spar with other boys who, like you, are eager to prove something. You learn how to fall off a horse safely. You fall off a lot. Some days, it feels like falling is the most important thing. People don't praise you for being strong, but they do criticize you for being weak. You learn quickly. It's better to keep your pain to yourself. Discipline is really important. Only speak when someone is talking to you. Show respect to people with more authority. Never question a command, no matter how small or embarrassing. If you make a mistake, you will be told off or have to do a difficult job for a week. One boy forgets to take off his hat when the lady of the house is there. He spends 2 days on his knees in the chapel, praying for humility. No one forgets. If your family is rich, you might get a teacher to help you learn to read and write, and maybe even a little bit of Latin. Latin is mostly useful for understanding church services and gravestone inscriptions. If not, you learn by copying others. You listen. You learn prayers off by heart. You copy letters by hand, carefully when the person in charge is nice enough to give you a bit of paper. Literacy is something that many people want, but not many people have. It's more important to have strong muscles and to obey. Even so, you still learn. You learn which fork to use, but most people prefer to use their fingers. You learn to stand still for hours at court feasts, balancing plates of hot meat while the nobles talk about politics and complain about the wine. You learn to stay hidden when people are angry and to vanish completely when drunk soldiers start swaggering about past battles. Every moment teaches you how to survive. Every morning, we all get together for church. The castle chapel is cold all year, and you can feel your breath in the air as you kneel on the stone floors and try not to fall asleep during church services. Faith is not optional. It is just as important as practicing with a sword. You are taught to be afraid of hell, to respect the church, and to confess regularly. The priests talk about God's plan and religious obligations. You nod along, trying to stay awake. Mostly, you pray that you won't get sick. There are not many treatments, and not many people get better. Meals are short and usually include bread, cheese and meat, if you're lucky. Vegetables are a possible cause. A lot of people think that eating uncooked green vegetables is bad for your health. You end up eating a lot of salted meat and dry crusts. You eat quickly because you know you have to get on with your next task. On special days when there is a holiday, there may be roast pig or honeyed oat cakes. People remember these days for years, as if they were dreams seen through smoke. In the evenings, the hall becomes a lively place. Minstrels sing ballads, telling stories about King Arthur, Roland, and saints who killed dragons. You sit near the fire, trying to hear every word. The songs are supposed to inspire you, but you're too tired to be moved. You think more about your sore feet than about doing good things. You still feel something. I hope that one day, someone will sing about you. You sleep wherever you can. Often, this is in the servants' quarters, where you sleep on straw pallets that smell of sweat and mildew, shoulder to shoulder with other boys. Sometimes, you have to get up at night to help with late arrivals or unexpected guests. You learn to keep going without complaining, to work until you are very tired, and to never let your eyes show that you are tired. A knight must always be ready. The training starts here. You're not alone. Other pages are not as good as yours. You make friends without talking, by looking at each other and complaining quietly together. You will learn about the daily life of a castle together. You learn which knights are cruel and which will ignore you if you steal a second helping of stew. You learn who is trustworthy and who is not, and which parts of the castle are quiet. There are funny moments, like when the cook jokes or when a knight trips over a dog while carrying a stolen apple. You hold on to these moments. They remind you that there's more to life than just your responsibilities. That laughter is still welcome here. Sometimes, you can see the world outside the walls. You might see merchants arriving with silks and spices, a group of performers, or a noble woman riding past with her servants. These sights feel strange and unfamiliar, as if the stories behind them are hidden in the mist. You're not part of that world yet, but maybe one day you will be. Sometimes I have doubts. The stories of glory seem far away, and the reality is much more difficult. You ask yourself if all of this, the aching limbs, the punishments, the hunger, is really the way to achieve honor. But sometimes, you see a knight in shiny armor and a flag flying behind him, and it makes your heart beat faster. You think, one day that could be me. Your lessons in humility go beyond just getting bruised and hungry. You also have to go to ceremonies, even though you barely stand out in them. You watch as rich and powerful people gather. They're wearing clothes that you're not allowed to touch or wear. You realize that you're somewhere between being useful and being invisible because of the looks and words they give you. When important people come to visit, the castle is turned into a theater. You get the guest rooms ready, polish the silver, and sweep the same corridors 3 times. If something is wrong, the pages are blamed. And if something goes wrong, say a dog bites a visiting bishop's leg, it's good to know how to avoid being seen. You can quickly look busy even when you're not dealing with a problem. At the festival, there is music and dancing and lots of wine. This is at least true for adults. You can watch from the corners, listening and looking, but pretending not to be watching. Sometimes, someone gives you a sweet treat, and for a moment, you feel a bit better about your situation. But these small acts of kindness don't change the reality. Your job is to help, watch, and remember. Some pages escape into books if they can read. The old steward's room has a few old books with lights, which are very heavy and made of leather. They are kept very carefully, like the weapons in the Lord's armory. On lucky evenings, you can sit next to a fire and listen to an old scribe read stories about Roman generals or saints who survived very difficult times. These stories are good for your mind while your body is recovering from the day's work. There are also warnings. They are spoken quietly or said by older servants. They tell you about pages who did not get a promotion, boys who got nervous or were told off or sent home. Sometimes they just disappear for no reason. Sometimes you hear things you were never meant to hear. You quickly learn when to speak, when to stay quiet, and when to keep your head down. The castle is like a furnace, and every hour spent inside it makes you stronger. He is not a knight yet, but he is no longer a child. You are a creature in transition. You have been through a lot. You have learned to be disciplined, and you are quietly determined. So, when you can't sleep and you're looking at the wooden beams above your straw-filled mattress, you think not just about what you've been through, but also about what's going to happen next. The next step is the next challenge. It will take you further on your path to becoming a knight. But for now, you are a page, and that is enough. When you turn 14, the apron strings of your pagehood are ceremoniously cut, though not with any kindness or softness. You are no longer a beginner. You are now a student. This new title may sound like a promotion, but it's not as good as it seems. You have gone from cleaning floors to cleaning armor, from getting goblets to getting the man who might be dying in one. Your new role is very personal and close. You are assigned to a knight, and you must serve him as faithfully as a shadow. Where he goes, you go. If she goes into battle, you go with her. If he falls over, you rush to help him up, even though you might get hurt in the process. You are no longer a member of the castle community. You are the squire of a warrior, and your days are shaped by what he demands. The training gets much harder. Riding a war horse is not as smooth and graceful as you might have thought. These beasts are huge, bred for strength and battle, and more unpredictable than most noblemen. It's quite tricky to put them up. It's all about keeping control and being in constant negotiation. Your thighs ache. You feel your spine with every step. Your bottom hasn't felt normal since Mecklemus. Sword training gets more intense. You now use real swords, not to kill, but they are sharp enough to make your opponent worried if they are more tired or less distracted than you. You argued every day, and your body was covered in bruises that never quite faded before new ones appeared. Every session is an exercise in humility. If you land on your feet after a swing, you'll have taken 3 hits. The knight you serve doesn't expect you to be polite. He expects to be challenged. But perhaps the most boring part of your job is looking after the equipment. You quickly learn that armor is not just made of metal. It's a system made up of living and non-living things. Sweat, dirt, and the occasional slug get into the joints of plate mail. You clean it, polish it, and check that everything is working properly. If the gear gets stuck or the helmet visor sticks in the middle of the battle, it's your fault. If your knight dies because you missed a cracked buckle, you'll probably wish you died first. Weapons need to be sharpened every day. Lances must be tested. Shields must be checked for cracks. If you do your job well, people will think highly of you. People only notice when things go wrong, but they don't say thank you when everything goes right. And then there are the tournaments. When you were a child, you thought they were really romantic. There are colorful events with trumpets and cheerleaders. The swords are now blunt and can break bones. You are the one who gets on the horse, holds the lances, and wipes the blood from your knight's face so he can smile for the crowd. If he wins, you get the prize money. If he loses, you get his broken ribs and what's left of his dignity. When a real war comes, and it will, you will march with your knight into mud, rain, and uncertainty. Campaigns are long and uncomfortable. There is not much food. There is even less sleep. If you have any armor, it is uncomfortable in places you didn't know existed. You begin to understand what it feels like to be exhausted when your limbs only move because you know you have to. Battle is not a glorious thing. It is a loud noise of screams, metal and orders that can't be heard. The sound of people hitting each other, the smell of blood and sweat, the sudden quiet of someone who is dying. These are what you learn. You learn to tell the difference between fear that makes you stronger and fear that makes you unable to act. Hopefully, the first one will appear more often. You're not there to fight yet, but that doesn't mean you're safe. When your knight is hurt, you must reach him, lift him, and pull him out of danger. Try to picture this. You're trying to drag a man wearing full armor, with every piece weighing more than a holiday roast, across a muddy field. At the same time, arrows are falling from the sky, like rain. It is not heroic. It is very tiring, and the reward is usually just a chance to do it again the next day. When your knight is hurt, you tend to his wounds. If he is caught, you will need to talk to the other side to get him released. Sometimes, this means dealing with men who would rather see him fail. You learn diplomacy not from teachers, but from real-life situations. Be careful with your words, be humble in your posture, and be respectful in your tone. Even when you don't say anything, you can still make a difference. Every now and then, you might feel proud. When you lead your knight's horse into a camp and turn to look, and when he nods at you after a battle, his arm is bleeding, but he is still alive. These moments are short-lived, like sunlight that passes through small openings. But they matter. They help you stay motivated. When you get back to the castle, you keep doing your job. You teach younger pages the same hard lessons you learned before. You work at banquets, help organize hunts, and stay with guests of importance at night. Your sword is worn, your boots are cracked, and you move slowly. But you're not a servant anymore. People are watching you, judging you, and measuring you. The priests are still waiting for your prayers. Your Lord still wants you to be loyal. Your body needs rest, but doesn't get much of it. We can't go back. We can only move forward by going through it. You start thinking about your own coat of arms. What colors? What are the symbols used for? You dream about the moment of dubbing, when you feel the sword on your shoulders, not as a squire, but as a knight. It feels as though it is impossibly far away. It feels like it's going to happen. It feels like both things. Then there are the days where it is really hard. Remember the days when you would bury a fellow soldier under a war horse or run through by a lance that wasn't sharp enough? Nobody sings songs for squires. Nobody writes poems for the boys who almost made it. You learn to deal with sadness without letting other people see it. You learn to keep going, even when things are changing and getting harder. If you're lucky, your knight will teach you more than just how to fight. He teaches you how to think, how to judge a man's character, how to read a battlefield, and how to lead. If he is wise, he will teach you when to speak and when to keep quiet. He will also teach you how to choose your battles and how to lose well. These are not things armor can protect you from, but they are just as important. Winter brings new challenges. You now understand that a sword is only as effective as the hand that can still feel its handle. Your fingers are stiff from the cold, and the metal of your knight's armor feels like ice as you put it on every morning. Snow makes the training yard very slippery and muddy. Horses can slip. So do you. You don't complain. The weather doesn't care how you feel. Some older squires are talking. Talk of glory, of rebellion in the east, of God's call. You listen, take it in, and do the sums. You have seen enough to know that success often comes with great difficulty. But if you were called upon to fight tomorrow, you would still do it. Waiting can be really hard. It can feel worse than the actual war. You write your first letter. It is unnatural, awkward, and formal. It is for your parents if they are still alive, and it says very little. You don't know where to send it. Writing it is important. It's like anchoring yourself and showing that you're still alive, even though you're covered in bruises, sweat, and steel. One night, after a big meal, your knight is drunk on me. He starts to talk about his first campaign in the past. He describes the rain, the hunger, and the excitement of surviving the attack. Then he stops talking. He looks into the fire and says the names of 3 men who didn't come back. You don't say anything. You should listen and remember. You practice every day, sometimes without other people knowing. You copy how your knight moves, his footwork, and the way he holds his sword before he strikes. You copy everything, hoping that by copying you will learn to do it without thinking. You bleed, you limp, you learn. One morning, without any warning, your name is called. You should ride with your knight, not as an observer, but as his second in command. The night before is a time of no sleep. You don't need to sleep. When you get on your horse, you're all set. Not perfect and not afraid, but ready. Your story is still being written, but it is already clear. It is written in swords made of cold iron, in the dust of roads, and in the calluses on your hands. You are no longer a boy, but you are not yet a man either. You are closer to being a man now. You are a squire, and you are training to become one. You are 21 years old, or close to that age. Some squires are younger, and some are older. The number isn't as important as the fact that someone in charge has finally decided you're ready. They are ready to kneel, swear, and kill and die with a little more official ceremony. Things won't change suddenly. You don't wake up with a deeper voice or a firmer jawline. You're still sore from yesterday's training. Your boots are muddy, and your shoulder is still healing from a cut. But this is the moment when you have reached the end of your youth. You have been hurt, your pride has been damaged, and your hands have been hardened by years of work. This has all brought us to the day of your knighthood. It starts with feeling alone. You're given a small, cold room to pray, think, and not eat from sunset to sunrise. There is nothing glamorous about it. There are stone walls, a single candle, and a chapel supply blanket that is both thin and scratchy. You kneel on the floor, your bones aching and your stomach growling. You try not to think about the warmth of the kitchens or the scent of roasting pork coming from below. The purpose of this vigil is to purify your soul and prepare you for the sacred duties of the night. You should think about the responsibilities you will have in the future. Protecting the weak, helping your Lord, supporting the church. In reality, you spend a lot of time thinking about whether or not someone would notice if you drank a sip of water or sat down for 5 minutes. You are not alone. Many people feel the same way. Lots of squires have kept watch like this before, some of them excited, and some of them calm. You wonder which you are. You try to remember all the prayers, the things you believe, and the correct posture. You try not to think about the rumors. People are saying that squires are going to be sick or pass out during the ceremony. That would be a shame and people would remember it, but it wouldn't be a good thing. When it is light, you will be taken to the main hall. It is changed for the event. Banners are on display. The candles are flickering. Nobles, knights, and priests gather wearing their best clothes and whispering behind their gloves. You will feel very quiet when you enter. The text is now simpler. Your name is being called. You kneel. Your lord, or maybe the king, depending on your rank, is coming up to you. He carries a sword. A sword is a sign of his role in the army and his power. But the sword may not be his own. Some lords keep a ceremonial sword for this reason. It has been made very shiny and has never been used in a fight. Try not to look too closely. You try not to shake. The sword taps your shoulders, left and right. The dubbing. In some traditions, you are also given a symbolic slap. This is a reminder of the physical and moral pain you must now endure without complaining. It's not a hard hit, but a gentle pat, and the message is clear. A knight's job is not to comfort, but to sacrifice. Then comes the oath. You speak seriously, promising to be loyal to your king, God, and the ideas of chivalry. You promise to defend the weak, protect women, speak the truth, and fight with honor. You say the words as if they are very important. You also think about how many knights still live by these words. When you have finished your promise, you stand up. You are not just a boy or a servant anymore, but a knight. The change is small inside you, but it has a big effect. People who hardly noticed you yesterday now nod and seem serious. Your colleagues clap you on the shoulder. Your lord gives you a smile that, by normal standards, is like a standing ovation. If your lord is feeling generous, you might get to enjoy a feast. If you do, you'll sit higher up at the table, drink from better cups, and get praise from the nobles you served with in the past. Some squires are made into knights on battlefields. This ceremony is done quickly and is full of action. Others receive the full pageantry. No matter what, the weight of the title is on your shoulders, like a heavy chainmail coat. Turns out, being knighted isn't a final destination, but a doorway. The world won't stop just because you've got a new status. You will have more and more responsibilities very soon. From now on, you should be the one in charge, not the one following. You should make decisions for yourself, not just go along with what other people say. You should be at the front of the group, not at the back. The sword that made you a knight is now yours to use, and nobody will question your decisions anymore. If you hear it, it will be out there for everyone to hear, and it will cost a lot of money. There are new ways in which you are responsible. A knight's promise is a promise that you can't break. Your signature is important that we have noticed that you did not appear in court. We assume you are in church. If you drink too much or talk too much, it reflects badly on you, your family, your church, and your community. If someone says the wrong thing, it can ruin the relationship. A fight can ruin months of peace talks. To put it simply, the more you rely on your sword, the less room for error you have. Your responsibilities go beyond just fighting. If your boss gives you land, you have to look after it properly. That means collecting taxes, resolving disputes between peasants, looking after the roads, and making sure the harvest is good. Knights are often thought of as fighters, but in reality, they're also managers, police officers, and landowners. Your sword might stay in its case for months at a time, but your seal is pressed into wax almost every day. You also have your own squire now. You must be aware of the irony. He is young, not sure of himself, and always tries to make others happy. You teach him how to polish your armor properly, how to saddle your horse without hurting its back, and how to pour wine without spilling. You correct him gently at first and more firmly afterwards. He is like a mirror image of you. It's funny and a bit embarrassing to see how far you've come and how far you still have to go. There's also the issue of your coat of arms. If you haven't had one yet, it's time to choose one. The colors, symbols, and family mottos all matter. They represent you in battle and in court. They speak before you do. A red lion on a gold background looks very different to a black cross on a white background. Make the right choice or pay a herald to help. If your lord is generous or your family has enough money, your new armor will be fitted to your frame. Full plate is expensive because every piece must be custom made. Wear leg coverings, gloves, and a chest protector. You stay still while the blacksmiths measure and clink their fingers, leaving soot on your skin. The weight is impressive. Walking in it feels like learning to move all over again. But you feel safe inside it too. It's as if metal could protect not only your body, but also your name. You go on your first formal ride through the village. You are at the front, not at the back with the servants. Children run to the roadside. Old men bow in a formal way. A woman throws you onto a bed. You try not to look too happy. The ordinary people don't cheer exactly, but they do stare. In the Middle Ages, giving someone your attention was like giving them a round of applause. That night, you are alone in your room and you take off your armor bit by bit, carefully. Take care when you put your sword down. You look at your reflection on a shiny plate and try to see what other people saw today. A knight is a protector and a leader. You might not believe it now, but you will soon. Things don't always change straight away. You train every day. You still wake up early and pray. You still feel sore and stiff after a long ride, and it hurts when a sharp object touches your elbow. But now people think your name is more important. You are asked for your opinion, not ordered. The youngest squires look at you with a mixture of awe and fear. It could be either of those. War will come again. You already know this. When the time comes, we will expect you to be at the forefront. Don't stand behind a shield wall. You won't have to wait for orders anymore. You'll be the one in charge. You'll be the one who speaks up, and you'll be the first to cross the field. If you're lucky, you might even come back with honor. If you don't go with them, your coat of arms will be taken home without you. This is what it costs to win. This is what the oath is all about. But you're still proud, not of your status, but of your survival. You made it through the long years, the cold nights, the humiliation, the training, the fear, and now you wear the title as if it were second nature to you. You are a knight, and your real service has only just begun. Becoming a knight does not make you feel powerful straight away. First, you become a knight. Then, you're given 60 pounds of steel and told to get on a horse. The first real lesson of knighthood is not how to fight, but how to walk, breathe, and not fall over in your own armor. At first, it's chainmail, which is made up of rings that fit together and hang down over your shoulders like an iron tunic. It's not as heavy as it looks, but it hugs your body and pulls at your arms and legs. It also soaks up every drop of sweat that your body makes. You wear padded gambeson quilted linen stuffed with wool or rags, which smells awful after a single skirmish and even worse after a week. But it stops the man from grinding against your skin like a cheese grater. As warfare evolves, so does your kit. Plate armor begins to replace the gambeson. At first, you get a breastplate and greaves. Then you get shoulder pads, arm guards, sabatons to cover your feet, joints that can move, and segments that are attached with rivets. Each piece is designed to protect you without pinching, but they almost always end up doing both. In the end, you are covered in metal from head to toe, and it's more like being folded into a walking bell than wearing clothes. The helmet is the worst part. It muffles your hearing, narrows your vision, and makes your breath steam up. It protects your head when you are in a fight. When you're not in the middle of a battle, it mostly just makes your head feel really heavy and heavy. Some helmets have visors that you can lift. This makes it easier to breathe and spit, but it also makes your face an easier target. There are always trade-offs when it comes to armor. Surprisingly, it is still possible to move around. You can run, squat, mount a horse, and roll if you're trained well. But nothing is easy. You're not agile. You are careful and thoughtful, and you quickly learn to move carefully, as if you were a man counting his last coins. If your opponent is wearing nothing heavier than boiled leather, they will be moving quickly, while you will look like a statue of St. George. And then there's the maintenance to consider. Make sure you clean, oil, and inspect every piece. A single rusty rivet can stop a joint from working. A dented chest plate can bend or break if hit again too quickly. Your squire becomes the blacksmith's apprentice very quickly. They work late into the evening, scrubbing and hammering. If he forgets a strap or doesn't fasten your quizzes properly, you will feel pain immediately. And we mustn't forget the weapons. Your sword is something you always have with you, but it is not the only thing. It is not the thin sword that people think of today, but a thick, heavy sword that is used for attacking, not for fighting with. The edge is kept sharp, but not razor thin, which makes it better able to withstand impact. You carry it with you, but only use it when you need to. The sword is a symbol and a tool. When you hold it, it becomes a part of your body. Then there's the lance. A knight without a lance is like a fish without gills. They are useless in an open battle. The lance is not delicate. It is a sharp pole about 10 feet long. You carry it under your arm and use it to hit anyone who is in your way. If you ride a horse, the horse's momentum can be used to attack. But it is also awkward to use, easy to miss, and once broken, it is mostly good for poking campfires. The mace is a brutal weapon. Short, stumpy, and blunt. It's just a lump of iron on a stick with no finesse or elegance. Its job is to smash helmets and crack ribs. This is useful when your enemy's armor stops blades from hurting them. When subtlety doesn't work, the mace makes its point very clearly. Axes are similar, but knights don't use them as often as mercenaries or soldiers from the north. But if you're in a small space, an axe can catch a shield, split a helmet, or pull a man off a horse. It's not thought of as being polite, but to be fair, neither is war. Shields are used in both attack and defense. You carry one of these, usually in the shape of a kite or a heater, across your back or strapped to your forearm. It shows your coat of arms, a symbol of hope in a difficult situation. You can learn to punch with it, deflect, and absorb force. A good shield can protect you from danger. A bad one could be the last thing you do. Siege weapons are not the same as other weapons. Catapults, trebuchets, and battering rams are used by engineers and lower-ranking soldiers. You watch them more than you control them, unless you're very unlucky, but you'll learn to be afraid of them. No armor can protect you from a boulder. When battle comes, your kit is both your salvation and your prison. When you attack, you should stand with your lance ready, shield up, and visor down. Your world becomes a noisy and blurry tunnel. Impact is sudden and total. You either hit or you are hit. You either fall or you don't. If you fall, someone else will have to help you up. Maybe your squire will help you get away before the crowd starts to push people. After the charge, if you are still standing, it's time for the fight. Sword in hand, you fight one man at a time. It doesn't look or feel elegant. It's a big mix of noise, movement, and metal hitting metal. You swing, you block, you pray. You don't try to be a hero, you try to have a good time. Armpits behind the knees, visor slits, weak points. Every knight has them. If you can't find theirs, they'll find yours. Afterwards, if you survive, you find out what a knight repairman does. You take off your armor bit by bit, and every dent and scratch shows its own small story. If a rivet breaks or a strap is torn, it is noted, recorded, and fixed. We have cleaned, inspected, and oiled your sword. Every weapon that has been used must be sharpened again. You won't sleep until your gear is ready again, because the next time it could mean your life. You start to notice the small differences between good and bad steel. You learn the smith's names. You become familiar with how a sword balance feels, how a shield feels when it's weighed down, and where a helmet should rest on your head. You start to notice small details that you didn't care about before. The type of leather used in your gauntlets, the weight distribution of a new axe, the way a visor latches shut. Some knights make their equipment stand out, with engraved pommels, crest-set chest plates, and gilt inlays. You can do the same if you have the money and time. But the same harsh reality is hidden beneath the decorations. Armor is not the same as a costume. It is about stopping people from dying in their beds. There are some disadvantages, of course. Armor is expensive. After a war or a tournament, you often lose a lot of your spoils, which are then used to pay for repairs and replacements. And then there's the issue of heat. Wearing a full suit of plate in the summer is like walking inside a forge, especially when it is sunny at midday. You sweat a lot. If you're not careful, you might faint and attract flies. No matter what, you get to know your equipment really well. You've tested it when it was shot at with an arrow. You felt the force of a mace hitting you and known that your armor protected you. It protects, but it also changes. You feel more confident when you wear it. People move to one side when they see you coming. Children point you out. People from the middle class bow. And you know this, right? Steel is not invincible. It just puts off the inevitable. You can fight well, prepare thoroughly, and we're the best armor in Christendom, but you could still be killed by a lucky hit with a spear or a well-placed arrow. A knight's tools are based on time, not certainty. When you take off your equipment at night, you do it slowly and carefully. Each strap is undone. Each piece is lifted away, and you feel smaller, lighter, and more exposed. Deep down, you're still just a person hurt, stiff, and in pain. And it's when you're alone with your sword on your lap and your armor on the stand that you really understand what it means to be a knight, that you're not made of steel. You look good wearing it. Every day starts the same way. Lifting, strapping, adjusting, and checking. Your squire fastens the buckles and gives you your gauntlets, looking for any signs of wear or weakness. You nod quietly and go back into your job. Even if you're really tired or have a lot of scars on your ribs, you're still needed. You have to keep going and stand between the danger and those who can't. You've built this life brick by brick, blade by blade. You chose to carry this weight, and you carry it well. You were told there was a code to live by. They called it chivalry. The words shone with potential, like shiny armor in the morning light. It was supposed to show what a knight should be like. It was about being brave, being polite, being honorable, protecting people who needed it, respecting the church, and having high ideals written in beautiful handwriting. These ideas were talked about in church and in poems. And then you rode into your first battle, watched a man in full heraldic armor trample a retreating soldier, and realized that the code of chivalry is more of a suggestion. Chivalry is a code of conduct, a moral compass for those who carry swords and believe in Christian values and feudal loyalty. It started out as a way to use good qualities to stop violent behavior. The church was always worried about the damage caused by idle knights, so they did their best to change you from a hired soldier into a holy defender. You are not just to fight, but to fight in the right way. Chivalry is like a tapestry. It looks impressive from far away, but it starts to look old and worn up close. The official tenets change depending on who you ask, but some things always stay the same. Protect the innocent, defend the church, be loyal to your Lord, be kind to your enemies, be honest, avoid unjust wars, and honor women, especially those of noble birth, that you're not made of steel. You look good wearing it. Every day starts the same way. Lifting, strapping, adjusting, and checking. Your squire fastens the buckles and gives you your gauntlets, looking for any signs of wear or weakness. You nod quietly and go back into your job. Even if you're really tired or have a lot of scars on your ribs, you're still needed. You have to keep going and stand between the danger and those who can't. You've built this life brick by brick, blade by blade. You chose to carry this weight, and you carry it well. You were told there was a code to live by. They called it chivalry. The words shone with potential, like shiny armor in the morning light. It was supposed to show what a knight should be like. It was about being brave, being polite, being honorable, protecting people who needed it, respecting the church, and having high ideals written in beautiful handwriting. These ideas were talked about in church and in poems. And then you rode into your first battle, watched a man in full heraldic armor trample a retreating soldier, and realized that the code of chivalry is more of a suggestion. Chivalry is a code of conduct, a moral compass for those who carry swords and believe in Christian values and feudal loyalty. It started out as a way to use good qualities to stop violent behavior. The church was always worried about the damage caused by idle knights, so they did their best to change you from a hired soldier into a holy defender. You are not just to fight, but to fight in the right way. Chivalry is like a tapestry. It looks impressive from far away, but it starts to look old and worn up close. The official tenets change depending on who you ask, but some things always stay the same. Protect the innocent, defend the church, be loyal to your Lord, be kind to your enemies, be honest, avoid unjust wars, and honor women, especially those of noble birth. That it's a great list, and I really admire it, but it's also a bit of a hassle. When there's a war going on, nobody stops to talk about what a good person they are. You can do it. You must do what your superiors tell you, even if that means burning a village to the ground because they think its people are disloyal. You take prisoners, but only if they're worth the money you could get from selling them. Mercy has a market value. People are encouraged to be honest. If you want to be a knight, you have to be honest. But if you want to get land or money, you have to be dishonest. Many a lie has been told using impressive language and with great conviction. It sounds nice to protect the weak in songs, but in real life, the weak are often the ones who get hurt. If your boss wants a peasant uprising to be crushed, you ride. If a group of ordinary people is standing between you and the enemy's grain supply, you don't go around them, you go through them. The poor look up to knights from a distance because they are rarely better off when one passes by. Then there is the issue of women. These songs are about courtly love, where men would pine for unreachable noble women. To be honest, the way you treat women is more about the law than feelings. Getting married is like being part of a political group. If you're in a relationship, it won't last long. How much protection you have depends on your class. A noble woman might be respected. A washerwoman was less so. This doesn't mean that knights are all dishonorable. Many people try to live by the code. They pray. They tithe. They don't cause unnecessary pain to animals. The world you live in doesn't often reward you for being careful. If a knight is unsure about attacking, they might not survive to show mercy. If a man speaks the truth too clearly, he might lose his land or head. It is strange, but tournaments are where knights show the most chivalry. In these stage shows, there are strict rules and the competitors are serious about winning. Say hello to the person you're playing against. You are careful. You lose with style. It's theater, yes, but the actors really believe in the script. And for a moment, the code becomes real life, but only for a short time. You write your name below a promise to obey and control yourself, then sign orders that send starving men to their deaths. You start to see that the code of chivalry is more like a map than a shield. It doesn't keep you from getting lost. It's just a handy reference to have when you're struggling to see. Some days are all you need. When it's quiet, you think about the things that don't seem to fit together. The songs you used to know by heart are about knights that killed monsters and saved girls. Your life is full of arguments about taxes, marches where people are hurt and kneeling. You were promised fame and fortune. You were given the practical side of things. And yet you don't feel angry about it. Not completely, because sometimes the code helps you remember who you were before the world got in the way of you. You meet knights who misuse the code, who use it for violent purposes. They quote from the Bible while they steal. They talk about honor, but act in a scary way. You can tell who they are by their smart-looking crests and empty eyes. You learn to let other people take the lead, or when the opportunity comes along, you make sure you're not in the way. You're not perfect. You figure out the code. You killed men who had already given themselves up. You have taken something that you were not allowed to have. You should have said something, but you didn't. But you remember the faces of those who tried to help. Like the knight who held a gate so that a village could escape. The one who refused to burn a monastery, not even when they said they would send him away. The person who died was kneeling, but not because they had given up, they were just praying. You kept trying your own way. You carry the code in your habits, not in words. Every morning, you pick it up like you would a sword. You know that by the time night falls, it will probably slip from your grip. But you reach for it anyway, because without it, you are just a killer. You could be something more. This is what chivalry is all about. The songs of the minstrels and the words of the priests are not what matters. What matters is what you try to do in a world that makes it hard for you to do anything. You continue to be bound by your oath. You protect your lord, fight his enemies, and bury his dead. You also feed your squire when you run out of food. You speak kindly to the old woman in the village who remembers you from when you were a boy. You always return lost items, even when nobody is watching. You're like a knight who remembers the code, not because it makes him stronger, but because it reminds him what strength is for. One day, in the future, a boy will ask you what it means to be chivalrous. You won't be reciting scripture or pointing to crests. Give him your sword and tell him to hold it still. And then you'll ask if he can carry it without letting it fall on the wrong person. You'll say that this is a good place to start because in the end, chivalry isn't about purity. It's about not giving up, even when things don't go your way, and deciding not to become the person you used to be. Every choice you make, you get a little closer to your goal. You've trained for years, practiced with swords before you were allowed to use one, seen men die before you were allowed to charge, and so often polish your own armor that you can still smell the vinegar and oil on it when you sleep. But none of that gets you ready for this. As soon as the trumpets sound, your horse shivers beneath you, and you see the bodies and banners of your enemy in front of you. The battlefield is not like a stage. It is not a place of honor or a place where people make plans. It is a chaotic mix of mud, blood, and metal. You can talk about the names of old heroes, the rules of chivalry, and the rules of engagement that bishops used to tell in church. Here, none of them are important. Preparing for war starts a long time before the fighting starts. You ride for a long time, even when it's raining or sunny. The air gets worse as the army grows. The smell of body heat, excrement, and rotting food is so bad that even the strongest stomach would be sick. Feet get blisters. People get angry. Your friends go from talking to each other to quietly complaining, and then they stop talking. The men start to smell like their horses. You do too. Life at camp is short and unpleasant. The tents flutter in the breeze like flags. Smoke is produced more than heat is produced by fires. You eat whatever is left over like salted meat, hard bread, and dried peas. Sometimes you're lucky. You are not usually. Clean water is rare. And when it isn't, you worry about what might be in it. It's cold in the morning, but by midday, it's really hot. You sleep wearing your boots and with your sword within reach. And then one morning, you reach the top of a hill and see them. A line of soldiers is seen across the field. Their flags are flying and their knights are shining in the rising sun. This is the moment. Your commander gives orders. They shout them, and then they tell the others. Everyone nods their heads to show that they agree. Not many people really listen to them. You feel your stomach tighten. You check your horse's girth strap. You say a prayer, or pretend to. You think about how many people will die before the sun sets. Then it starts. The charge is not smooth. It's raining heavily. Hooves make the ground shake. Land slower. Every heartbeat counts down to impact. You aim your weapon and hope that the man opposite you is slightly slower and more scared. The clash is very intense. You might hit. You might miss. You might be hit. You might fall over. If you fall, you hope you can get up before the next wave of people hits you. The noise never stops. There are loud noises, people shouting, the sound of metal hitting metal, horses running, and people asking for help. There is no rhythm, only violence. You fight in short bursts. A blade moves very close to your head. You duck. A man jumps. You block your sword without thinking. An axe hits your shield. You feel a shock in your teeth. You are not thinking about being a hero. You measure things in inches. You might take one step forward, but it might be your last. It is a small miracle to be alive and well, even if you are just standing still. And all the while, mud sticks to your boots, your grip is covered in blood, and the air tastes of iron and ash. There are no victories that are completely clean. Even if you survive, you have probably killed someone in a face-to-face confrontation that I looked into their eyes, saw their fear, and felt their last breath on your face. Nobody teaches you how to deal with that. Sometimes you just can't keep going. A blow knocks you over. Your visor suddenly comes loose, and you see hooves and blades above you. You try to get up, but you can't. If your armor gets stuck in the mud, you're in trouble. If your squire finds you quickly, he might be able to save you. If not, there are worse ways to die it than being forgotten. You catch sight of other people. The knights have been defeated, the peasants killed, and the flags have been taken down. You recognize people you know. They disappear very quickly, and are replaced by another swinging sword. There's no time to be sad. There's only time to breathe and swing again. Sometimes, the melee just becomes a big old mess. Orders are pointless. The lines disappear. You find yourself next to people you don't know. Sometimes enemies are mistaken for allies, and sometimes allies are mistaken for enemies. In these moments, the battlefield really looks its true self. It is not a fight between countries or beliefs. It is a fight for survival. If you live, it ends with you being very tired. Your arms hurt, your earring. If your horse is still alive, it will be foaming at the mouth and trembling. You walk back to your camp, take off your armor with shaky hands, and look at your blood-stained gloves. You hope they are not yours. You're not sure. Later, you walk the field. The crows are gathering. Men groan where they are lying, too hurt to get up. You try to help, but there are too many of them. Some of them are left with water. Some people say a prayer quietly. Some of them you finish because they are kinder. Your boots are soaked in blood. You stop noticing the smell. Lutters are already at work, taking things like rings, purses, and boots from corpses, and sometimes even teeth. It's not very honorable, but makes sense. War is expensive, and a fallen knight's sword might be able to pay for someone's winter grain. You look away. You must not stop them. You find your friends, the ones who survived, and sit with them next to a dying fire. You all stay silent. Some people look at wounds and make them clean, while others just look at them. Nobody should brag. No one brags. Nobody drinks. You all know better. People who laugh after a battle often cry when they get fever. There is no party. There is only tallying. How many people died? How many banners were there? How many horses do we need to replace? How many squires didn't come back? In the weeks that follow, the story is made clearer. Minstrels write songs about brave actions and great achievements. The Lord gives a speech. Priests say they have won a just victory. When you come back, you're taken through the streets. Flowers are thrown. Children are happy. You wave, smile, and nod. But you remember the smell of the field, the look in the eyes of the man you skewered, and the cries of your friend as he fell out beside a broken shield. You must remember that this is a very dangerous place. It's not the place from stories where people wear shiny armor and wear jewels, but the real place. It's muddy, scary, loud, and confusing. It's a place where being honorable is a luxury, being kind is rare, and knowing how to survive is a skill. You're no longer just a knight. You are a soldier, and you have been in the army for a long time. Even though you ride on, polish your armor, and train your squire, part of you will always be there on that nameless battlefield under the gray sky, with swords covered in blood and fogging your visor. That part of you never really goes away. You don't talk about it. What really happened? When newspapers ask for information, you give them lessons on what you know, how you know it, and what you're planning to do. You don't explain what the sounds are like. You didn't talk about the shaking hands. You don't do it because you're ashamed. You do it because you can't find the right words to describe it, and because you're afraid they'd still want it. But you prepare them all the same. Make sure they always keep their shield up, even when they're tired. Keep an eye on their footwork and check the straps on their greaves. Don't just check them once, check them twice. These small details are very important because they can save lives. You know, you've seen the cost when people forget about them. Your own scars will fade with time. On the surface, at least beneath them, they stay as memory, not wounds. You remember how heavy the dead night was, the one you dragged from a ditch full of people you remember the silence just before the charge? Do you remember what the field looked like afterwards? Still broken. No, that's not right. You keep on riding because someone has to, because the war never really ends. It only sleeps between battles. You don't try to be the best anymore. You want things to be clear. You want to survive. And you do whatever you can to make sure the men next to you come home. This is what it means to stand up for what you believe in. This is not for banners or poems, but for the people on your left and right. This is for the squire who still believes in songs. Even when you don't believe, you still whisper prayers. You were made by steel, but you are also shaped by experience. This is the toughest place you have ever been in, and you have made out alive. In surviving, you have learned that every inch of ground is important and that it costs lives. You get through your first battle and then another one. And even though a war might not be over, it will stop. Armies break up, swords are put away, and flags are taken down. For a while, there is peace. But if there is no war, we are not using a weapon. And weapons that are not used often tend to rust. So, you decide to try something else, the tournament. It's not a fight, not a massacre, although it might come close. It's a battle that's been made to look like a spectacle, with flags, formal clothing, and money involved. In a war, there is chaos. But in a tournament, there is order. In a world of battle, some people become legends. In the world of the tournament, others become celebrities. It all starts with an invitation. If your name is important or your lord has a lot of money, you have been invited to a list field near a busy town where the flags are flying high. You arrive with your squire, your armor shining so bright it's almost blinding, and your horse looking as groomed as a bride's hair. The grounds have been prepared days in advance. There are wooden stands that stick up out of the grass. People selling meat pies set up stalls and put tokens on sale. Minstrels practice songs they want to perform at the justs. Children run between tents, calling out the names of their favorite knights. If you're good at your job, you might get to go with them. But don't think this is a walk in the park. A tournament is as dangerous as any battlefield, but it's better lit and the rules are more clearly explained. There are two main events, the melee and the joust. The melee is a big, pretend battle. There are lots of knights on foot or horseback running across a big, open field. They say this is like real combat, but it doesn't usually follow the same rules. The aim is to take away your opponent's weapons, remove their horses, and hit them so hard that they submit, without killing them. You don't do it to show mercy, because corpses can't pay ransoms. You go into the field with your team, wearing a shield on your arms and your heart beating loudly behind your breastplate. Horns sound. The crowd cheers. You put your visor down and go in. The fight feels real. The blades are blunt, but they can still cause harm. Bones are broken. Teeth have been lost. Pride is always at stake. If you strike, you're struck. You fall, but then you get back up again. In the den, someone shouts your name. They're either happy or worried about you, or sometimes both. The fight is over when only a few people are left standing, or when the judges decide it's become too unfair. You leave the field feeling great, tired, or even a bit numb. If you do well, people will think well of you. If you do badly, you act like you don't care, but secretly check for bruises. Then it's time for the jousting competition, which is the most exciting part of the tournament. One knight, one lance, one hit. The tilt rail separates you and your opponent. You both run forward on horseback, trying to hit each other with your lances. Players get points. The helmets have dents in them. Sometimes the ribs are a bit cracked. Sometimes more than one knight dies beneath the applause of the crowd. There is a spectacle to it. There's enough ceremony for a wedding. Your name is announced. Trumpets sound. A lady puts a ribbon on your lance. You salute the stands, your opponent, and then take your place at the end of the field. Then the flag drops, and all the fanfare disappears as you focus on the horse's hooves, the narrow space in front of you, and the tip of your lance, and the target ahead. When you hit the ball cleanly, the sound of the ball hitting the bat is like thunder. Splinters explode. The crowd cheers. If you fall over, you hit the ground hard and stay there for long enough to remember that mud is not friendly. Victory brings money. And even more importantly, look at the lords in the stands. They're looking for talented people, people who have the potential to become famous, or people who could be famous and married. If you impress the right person, you could become very successful very quickly. If you become well-known, you might get invited to bigger competitions in Paris, London, or Rome. At least, that's what the stories say. But not all just are the same. Some people are friendly, honest, and fair. Others are more violent and dishonest. There are stories going around that knights have been bribing marshals, damaging armor, and changing the tips of their lances to make them blunt. Every tournament has its share of bad blood, with rivalries flaring up and insults being thrown back and forth. And then there are the injuries, shoulders dislocated, wrists broken, and heads hurt. You'll quickly learn to wait until your ears are working again before you take off your helmet. Even people watching are not always safe. A splintered lance, a long, thin, pointed weapon, once flew into the stands and took out a merchant's eye. Every year, he still comes to watch from the other side. Outside the arena, there's a fair. Traders sell all kinds of things, from old objects to roasted chestnuts. Poets sell poems that they have just written. Apprentices jump in the mud while repeating your name. At night, bonfires crackle, ale flows freely, and minstrels sing songs that make every blow and every favor seem really good. If you have been hurt a little, you might be able to write a few poems. Then nobles hold big parties. You go to church wearing clean and lace shoes. As if it's a punishment, you bow, you drink, you put up with conversation. A lady might ask about your technique, but her reasons for asking might have more to do with inheritance, scandal, or both. Tournaments are also a place for politics. People form alliances, start competing, and lords make money from their drinks. If you win on the field, you might get a contract, a car, or even someone to marry you. If you lose, people might remember that for a long time after your ribs have healed. Tournaments are expensive, even if they are very glamorous. You will need to pay to get in, fix your armor, take care of your horse, put up a tent, and pay bribes. It all adds up. If you don't manage your campaign properly, you might end up with less money than you started with. Some knights borrow money, some sell their land. Some people try to get what they want in a way that isn't very nice. Gambling, trying to get money by force, and fixing sports games. Even so, you always come back. There's an energy to it that nothing else has, because the crowd remembers your name. A good tournament can be more successful than 5 years of border patrol. It makes you feel good. It makes you stand out. That IT makes you visible. In a world where power is about how people see things, it's very important to be seen. You go in, you fight, you bleed, you bow down, and when you win, you smile even though your lips are broken. For a short time, you're more than just a servant made of steel. You are the most important person. You're not at war, but you are in a fight. This is the tournament circuit, and you are still here. By the end of the week, your body will be covered in bruises, scratches, and bruised egos. Your squire works late into the night, fixing your kit. You spend the evening drinking watered wine, pretending that your shoulder doesn't hurt. If you have a blackened eye, people will find you unappealing company at dinner. The limpet's character. You don't speak of the fear. The heartbeat just before the lance drops. You start to worry that the next hit might be the last one. You swallow it. Put under the layers of steel and confidence. Every night does. It's normal to feel afraid. Admission is not. If you win the tournament, you leave with money, a new favor from someone, and invitations to the next event. If you lose, you leave with nothing and you are very sad. You already think about how long it will take you to earn the money you lost trying to win. The road on the other side is quieter and less impressive. You're accompanied by a few friends. One person coughs up blood, while another holds a hand that may never be able to hold a lance again. The squires are still talking excitedly about the show. They have not yet learned that applause has a price. And so, hurt but not badly, you go back to your estate or your base where the real work is waiting for you. But for a week, you're more than just a soldier. You are amazing. You're a legend. You will do it again. War can make you famous, but tournaments can make you really famous. Sometimes, that's all you need. The crowd will see you as more than just a knight. You are a name, a banner, and a force in motion. For a short time, everyone could see how good you were. The loud, high-pitched noise from the trumpets dies down. The tournaments are over. The noise of the battlefield stops. You don't just return to rest, you return to a more complex task, responsibility. You're not only a knight, you are also a lord's servant, landowner, and law enforcer. No matter how big your thief is, it will always challenge you just like any other fight. Your estate is a bit of a mess. It's got thatched roofs, fields where animals graze, and people who don't easily change. It was given to you because you helped out, but now you have to look after it and the people who work there. They don't know you as a soldier on horseback or someone who uses a lance. They know you as the man who demands grain in October, sends messengers to settle arguments, and sometimes rides through the village just to remind everyone who owns what. Your mornings don't start with sword drills, they start with ledgers. Your steward is responsible for collecting taxes, harvesting crops, and dealing with debts. You nod your head to show that you agree, but you don't really understand half of what is being said. There's always a shortage. A pig disappeared, a crop failed, and someone died with money still owed to them. The solution is always the same: more paperwork and fewer pigs. Then it's the petitioner's turn. Farmers and villagers came to your hall to speak to you about their problems. He stole my goose. Her cow stepped on my barley. Their son hit mine with a stick. You sit under a banner with your arms on it, listening with the tiredness of a man who has been shot at and would rather be shot at than be there. Justice must be quick or at least well known. You nod. You're okay. You send men to check fences. The villagers leave, mostly happy. You hope. Fighting between ordinary people is one thing. Your men at arms argue more. If two armed servants start arguing about who gets what or where to put the animals, they might start using swords. You have to step in and stop them. You can't do this as a friend, but as their boss. You have to be strong, fair, and in charge. It's hard to show strength without getting angry. You are in charge. You also collect taxes, grain, wool coins, and goods. These are added up, stored, and sent to your local lord. You need some of it to pay your servants and keep your home. Some of it disappears into the hands of the lords, and you never see it again. You think some of it is being used to pay for the bishop's wine or to pay for your lord's latest embroidery, but it is not polite to question how money is shared out in the old system. You nod, sign, and send the ox cart on its way. Then there will be an inspection. You are in your fields, moving slowly between the rows of barley and flax. You speak to the reeve, the village overseer, who tells you that there are not enough workers and everyone is unhappy. You pretend not to hear the people in the hedge talking about rent, taxes, and your new scabbard, which probably cost more than a low-quality one. You smile, nod, and get on with it. People show respect more when they keep their distance than when they are close. Your hall must be stocked and guarded, your garrison trained, your walls maintained, and your steward reminded that the grain cellar smells odd again. You oversee the blacksmith, the barrel maker, and the baker. You approve repairs to the millstone, arrange timber for winter, and once a month host a feast for local tenants to keep up the illusion that everyone is cheerful and that loyalty is mutual. You settle arguments between couples, agree to training contracts for apprentices, and sometimes discipline people. Thieves could get hurt really badly. Poachers might pay with money or by doing work for you. There are gallows, but you don't often use them. They are better as symbols than tools. Even so, you still make the village remember what happens when people ignore the law when you need to. The church is always there. You pay a priest to look after your estate, and in return your name might be mentioned in a sermon. You go to church, say you're sorry for your sins, and give money that matches the sins you have been thinking about. After all, it's easier to be pious in theory than in practice. Even your home needs to be managed. Your servants keep changing their loyalty, incompetence, and mild insubordination. The cook is really angry about the poor quality of the flowers. The stable hand says the hay delivery is late again. One of your chambermaids is very friendly with a visiting knight, and you must pretend not to notice unless it causes a child, or worse, a rumor. Your squire always needs training. He forgets your saddle straps and leaves your sword unchucked when it's raining. After he has polished your boots with lard, you might scold him, train him, threaten to send him to the monastery, and then end the day by praising his effort. That's all the boy really wants. Your wife, if you have one, is in charge of her own part of the estate. She organizes the kitchens, manages the servants, and keeps the accounts. She is as clever as your sword, and even more dangerous if you cross her. She reminds you when it's time to pay your rent, when your cousin's widow is waiting for a letter, and that the priest caught you sleeping during church again. You learn to listen. You also learn never to suggest that the host should prepare the next feast without preparing for a 3-day argument about tablecloths and napkins. In times of shortage of food, your role becomes that of a judge who doesn't want to make anyone beg for money. You ask your Lord for help while sharing the few things you have. If people don't have enough to eat, the manna will get weaker. A dead peasant does not work in the fields. You give them just enough to keep them working and to stop them becoming rebellious. When there is plenty to go around, you are generous, but you make sure that everyone can see this. There was bread for everyone at the chapel door. Coins are thrown during feast days. It is not a kind act. It is theater.it keeps order. The ordinary people call you my lord, but you're not sure if they mean it as a sign of respect, resentment, or resignation. It's likely all three. They bow down, but you can still see them thinking about it. You ride past them, feeling powerful and wearing armor. You are their protector. You are the tax they pay. You are the one who decides what they do. And sometimes you are the one who carries out their punishment. Sometimes you host knights or minor nobles who are visiting. These visits are a mix of being friendly and trying to get what you want. You must look rich, but not show that you're lazy, and powerful, but not scary. Saying something bad about the king's taxes could make people think you're a traitor. If you cook a pigeon badly, you might offend your guest cousin, who is actually an earl. You walk a thin line between being polite, showy, and performing. But it's not just about being careful and managing things. Sometimes it's calm. You ride on your own at sunrise through the wet fields, greeting shepherds who have been up for longer than you. You sit by the fire in winter and listen to your landlord mumble about money while the fire crackles behind him. You have a drink with your sergeant-at-arms. You're both old enough to admit that you have more back problems now than you used to. You are in charge of how you act, but you also have to live with the results of your actions. You can't leave for long. Bandits might attack. The grain might start to rot. Your cousin might try to claim it. Even going to court feels like leaving your child to get by on its own. And when you come back, something is always broken. A gate, a contract, a fence, an Aussie. Even so, there's a sense of pride. It's not about the power, but the structure. You're the reason this place is still standing. You have to feed 100 people. You solve problems before they become big arguments. You remember people's names. You go to baptisms, funerals, and harvest dances. You stand next to people who are dying and sign documents for people who are getting married. You are a part of the land, a part of its rhythm and heartbeat. This is the other life of a knight. It's not about being the best or the worst, but about being good at running things. And even though it will never be sung by musicians or written on stone, you know the truth. A knight's reputation is protected by his blade, but his estate keeps him alive. When the war is over and the war drums stop, the things you have done are not what matters. It is your land, your people, and the fragile peace you hold together, one decision at a time. When it's quiet, the ledge is close, and your sword goes back on its rack. You're left with something that not many people talk about and is often not talked about in a very positive way: your private life. You'd think that after tournaments, campaigns, and estate matters, you'd be too tired to sleep every night. You'd be wrong. It's hard to find a moment to rest. Comfort is not always there. The truth is, sleep is a luxury at night, and it is often hard to get. Your bed is not as comfortable as beds were in the past. It's a wooden frame filled with straw or wool and covered in linen that smells a bit like dust and tiredness. You might be sharing it with your husband or wife, or on your own, with your armor spread out to dry next to you. It's quiet as the heat leaves the metal. You don't sleep for the whole night. That's not how it's done. You sleep in short bursts, interrupted by prayers, patrols, and old wounds that hurt more as the fire burns low. Sometimes you have to go to the barracks to settle an argument. Sometimes you lie awake thinking about a difficult situation or wondering if the waiter lied about the grain again. But there's also some good news. There is laughter too, and a feeling of warmth that does not come from fire. Your hall is more than just a place where you go to be judged. It's your space, your theater, your lounge. Minstrels sing near the fire. A bard might be traveling through the area and singing stories about wars in faraway lands or princes who are in love. You already know how it ends. You still enjoy them. Being familiar with something makes you feel comfortable. Games are played. Games like dice, chess, and backgammon. You sometimes cheat when no one is watching, or you lose big time, blaming the fire, the drink, or the way the table is set up. Your friends make noise, laugh, and keep drinking wine. When the feasts arrive, they're always busy affairs. They're not as grand as a royal banquet, but there's a lot of noise and people eating meat that has been spilled on the floor. There's also a lot of laughter that can be heard throughout the room. You sit at the high table, but not far from the half. You drink with your friends, cheer your squire on, and sometimes throw a coin to the hounds under the bench. A juggler or a fool could perform. His jokes were a thinly veiled way of insulting local religious leaders or visiting nobles. You laugh too loudly just to show the guests that you can take a joke. It's a delicate situation, kept going by roast pork and stale bread. Sometimes the evenings are less lively. A servant plays the lute. Your wife is humming a hymn she has forgotten half of the words to. You fall asleep in the chair by the fire, but you wake up when the logs fall down and make a lot of sparks. Everything suddenly stops for a moment. Your household goes to bed early. The servants get up before sunrise, so they disappear quickly. Your squire stays behind, hoping you will either praise or advise him, or just not wanting to go back to the straw mat beside the armory. You tell him to go quickly. He has earned a break, even if you haven't. You might walk around the manor at night, remembering the past. You check the locks, look into shadows, and listen out for anything unusual. You don't expect to find anything. Sometimes you just need to get up and move around. This will make you feel the floor under your feet. It will remind you that you are still alive and that you still own the house and the walls. When storms come, it's really hard to sleep. The wind howls through the windows. Rafters groan. You remember nights out in the countryside when the only way to keep dry was to wrap a cloak around your body and sit on the back of a horse. You tell yourself that this is better. You almost believe it. Private life also means private thoughts, and these are harder to deal with in fields or squires. You wonder if the land is truly yours or just held until a richer man wants it. You think about the faces of the men you've killed. You might remember some of them, but not all of them. You think about your dad and whether he felt the same way about his duty and his doubts. On good nights, you write or try to. You write letters on special paper, keeping track of money spent or making official notes for other people who own land. Sometimes you try to write poetry. It's really bad, but your servant doesn't tell the truth, and your wife hides the worst of it before guests can find it. When guests arrive, you will no longer have any privacy. Performance is everything. The hall is cleaned and the good wine is brought out. You laugh at the same joke twice and listen to stories about hawks that flew higher and horses that ran faster than any in your stable. You nod your head in agreement. You flatter. You keep going. But when they leave, when the doors are shut and you can hear the boots no longer, you finally enjoy the rare treat of silence. You sit next to the fire with your cup of tea, letting the silence stretch out around you. There are no battles to plan or taxes to collect. All you can hear is the sound of wood burning and your own breathing in the dark. Your body is covered in scars. You know which shoulder clicks in the cold, which ribs ache when you exercise, a broken finger from a tournament in Kent, a scar on your thigh from a skirmish near the border. You have experienced these pains before. You greet them as if you've known them for a long time. You have learned not to complain. Everyone gets aches and pains. The squire asks you if you ever sleep well. You smile. Tell him yes when the fire is low and the dogs aren't snoring. It's not true, but it's the kind of lie you tell nicely. There are dreams that feel real, seem strange, and just won't go away. Sometimes you're in a battle and you try to grab a sword even though there isn't one there. Sometimes, when you're walking through the halls of the house where you grew up, the walls are crumbling and nobody speaks your name. You used to dream of flying above fields, rivers, and the manor itself. You woke up smiling for once. Not every moment is great. Most of them are not. There is mud tracked into the hall, a loose floorboard that catches your boot, a spilled bucket, a burnt loaf, and a cough in the night that makes you sit upright and listen until it stops. These are the details of life. These are what you do in your free time between battles. On feast days, the private becomes the public. There is dancing of all kinds. You watch more than you take part, but sometimes you find yourself joining in with a song that's older than the church itself. You walk unsteadily, laugh at your clumsy movements, and your wife laughs even more. The servants smile, but only for a moment. You give gifts like bread and cheese and sometimes coins. Children run around the garden while the adults sit in the sun and act like their knees don't hurt. For an afternoon, nobody is made to pay taxes, be judged, or be asked to do something. You watch, not as a lord or a knight, but simply as a man. Just a man who is quietly grateful. Your dog is lying on your boot. You gently rub his ears and relax. You're tired, but not in the way that battle tires you. This is a deeper pain, the kind that comes from carrying not just weapons, but people, places, and purpose. You do it because there's a rhythm here. It's a strange and stubborn peace between duties. It's not about feeling comfortable or easy, but about finding something that has more meaning. This is about what a knight does in his free time. Mastering this is more difficult than mastering war. The history books tell us about your battles and your flags, but it's the quieter moments, the songs we've forgotten, the letters left unfinished, and the silence in a sleeping hall that truly show us who you really were. You get up at sunrise, your joints hurt, and the cold is getting worse. The steward says hello. The squire is quieter now than he was in the past. At first, everything feels normal, but when you step outside, you realize that something has changed. It's not to do with the air or the weather, but the way the world works. There are fewer hooves on the road, fewer hands raised in salute. The banners are still there, but they're hanging lower than they used to. Your role was once very important, but now it feels like it is more of a formality. You continue to ride out, wear the armor, and train the new soldiers who are eager and full of energy. But even they look past you now to the engineers drawing up strange machines, or the captains drilling rows of men with pikes and gunpowder. The future is not like a warhorse. When you see the musket fired in anger for the first time, it feels like a mistake. There is no nobility involved. There is no dance, no jewel, just a bang, a puff of smoke, and a man down. You watch it from a hill with your men standing next to you, and you don't say anything. You will clean your sword at a later time. Maybe it's a habit or a rebellious streak. The Lord, who called you to fight in border battles, now only sends word in winter. He asks for information about grain, taxes, and the movement of tenants. The battles still happen, but now they are led by men who look at maps instead of men who are just men. You're just there for show. Your council, the polite tradition at court, and the great knights meet less often. The old names, the ones you remembered when you were a squire, are no longer used. Those who are still around now come later, and their crests are less bright. You show your feelings with gestures, not words. Nobody wants to say what you all already know. Your armor, which was once polished, is now weak and collects dust when it is not being used. The squire still oils it more because he thinks he should, not because he needs to. It's heavy now, not just in terms of weight, but in terms of memory as well. Every dent in the wall reminds me of a small fight. Each rivet represents a day spent living a life that is now slowly disappearing from my memory. You still wear it sometimes for special events like parades. One day, a boy asked if it was real. You don't tell them off for using words that you think are old-fashioned. The pageantry is still there, but it's already starting to show some signs of wear and tear. People don't make as much noise on feast days. There are fewer nobles at the event. The heralds no longer call out names with the same energy they used to. The songs still celebrate the good old days, but they're always talking about the past. You listen, nod, and raise your cup. You smile when they look at you during the verses that start with the words, "in days of yore." You walk around your property and watch your tenants. They use newer tools now. Some have coins stamped with the king's face. Others carry documents like paper, permits, receipts, and even letters. As reading and writing become less common, the blacksmith's son wants to become a carpenter. The miller's daughter talks about going to school. You think these are good things, but there's a catch. Boys don't want to be like you anymore. You still train them and still swing the sword, but it's harder now. When it's cold, your shoulder might feel stiff. When you're going up a hill, your breath might feel short. The blade might feel longer, even though it isn't. You make more noise when you get up. Now that the squire has grown up, he looks at you the way you used to look at your master. Half respect, half readiness. Even the battles felt different. You don't ride at the front anymore. You're asked to watch and give advice. You should be a wise person, not someone who acts. You respect the rules, but you still want to charge and make the ground shake. You get it. The night is coming to an end, not with a bang, but with a series of smaller events. Gunpowder doesn't care about family ties. Formations don't care about dignity. The nightly charge, once feared and respected, is now being fired at with cannons and muskets. You've seen it. You have counted the dead. You try not to feel bitter about it. After all, every age must end. The Romans once thought their roads would last forever. The old emperors believed their names would outlive stone. People are even using stones to build barns and chapels now. Time makes all legacies more useful. Even so, there is still sadness. Keep it quiet and be patient. You know when people start to look at your sword not just with admiration, but also with curiosity. When your banner is recognized not for its victories, but for how long it's been flown. When your warhorse dies and the stable boy asks if you'll replace it with a mule. He says it's more practical. You tell yourself you're lucky. You lived. You saw the best and the worst of your order. You worked hard to get where you are today. You have a good name and a seat at the important table. You got back home. Not everyone did. Sometimes you take the long road past the old battlefield. It's farmland now, but it's quiet. There's a grove where the archersons stood, a raised area where the mounted soldiers got ready. You get off and walk it. Your boots sink into the soft earth. There's a weathered stone marker that is bent. Nobody knows what the names carved there were. You do. You have more dreams at night. Not all dreams are bad, but some are. You might see a lance breaking, your friend laughing, or the exact color of the sky above a foreign field. You wake up feeling cold and confused. You realize that your memory is much better than usual. You now write more reflections than orders or reports. You try to describe what it was like. The armor was heavy before sunrise. The excitement before a game. The smell of the field after it has rained. You want to record what it felt like to be a knight. This is true, not just a story. You don't know who it's for. Maybe the boy who will find it in a chest one day. Or maybe not. Visitors still come. They ask questions. Was it wonderful? Was it the right thing to do? You answer carefully sometimes, even on good days. It was cold, loud, and lonely too. You can tell them that being knighted is a way of honoring someone for their service to others. A service to God, to one's country, and to a cause. And sometimes when the wind was blowing the right way, it felt like something amazing was about to happen. You walk with a stick now. The squire, who is fully grown, walks alongside you and tries not to look worried. He addresses you formally as sir, but you let it. It doesn't cost anything. It reminds you that even when the age is ending, you are still a representation of it. One evening, you give your sword to him. He doesn't say thank you. He just takes it with both hands and looks wide-eyed. He doesn't have to. You gradually disappear, not because you feel ashamed, but because you are moving to the music. The halls are quieter. The flames are lower. You will have less work to do. The land goes on. It's all about the people. And in the quiet time between the seasons, you feel something like peace. Let the storytellers sing about dragons and jewels. Let the painters add shining colors and golden decorations. You remember the cold mornings, the crooked smiles, the cracked ribs and cracked jokes, the smell of wet horse and the taste of cheap ale. That was also a knighthood, and that was all she needed. You don't know what will happen in the world, but you do know that it will happen. Castles will fall apart. Cannons will fire. The old ways will be included in new books, new rules, and new uniforms. But perhaps in some chapel or court, a tapestry will still be hanging, and a child will point to the figure in the corner, the one wearing battered armor, and ask, "Who is that?" There's a chance that someone might remember. It's not about the battles or the banners. It's about the man. That will be enough.